Hello, everyone, and let's talk about subqueries in the where clause. All right, for this particular video, what we're going to do is go through and understand subqueries in the where clause. You now should have a decent understanding of what a subquery is, a query within a query, and where it can be used based about any type of SQL statement and pretty much anywhere in the select statement. But with this case, what we're going to do and what we want you to try is applying it to the where clause within a select statement. All right. So we're going to talk about a couple things and a couple of new things that you can use in relation to subqueries that kind of really works well. And that is exist and not exist and in and not in. And we'll explain that here as we continue on. And then we're going to go out and apply, especially the in and the not in, the one we really want you to focus on for this particular course, kind of keeping it easy for you. All right, so let's get started. All right. So as you know, the where clause is used to extract only those records that will fulfill a specified condition. So the where clause allows us to apply a condition to our select statement. It provides that filtering, if you will. You know that by now, hopefully. All right. To gain an understanding of subqueries, we'll learn how and practice how to apply them in the where clause. All right. There's two main ways of doing this: the exist and not exist, and in or not in. And I should probably say we actually saw another way in the previous video where we can just actually say where date equals min and so on. In this case here, what we're going to do is we're going to have a subquery and we're going to determine the results of that query. And based upon that, our outer query will either return values or not return values. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if it does or not. With that said, let's go ahead and kind of show you what we mean by this. Okay? Exist and not exist. You can utilize these. Well, exist and not exist really does need to be part of the overall subquery. A subquery should be part of it, okay? The exist condition is used in combination with a subquery. It returns true whenever the subquery returns one or more values. And so if we look at a situation here, so suppose we need to return all sales orders written by salespeople with sales year to date greater than $3 million. To do so, we can use an exist clause as shown in this example. So we want to return sales order number, revision number, order dates from the sales order header. Okay, so basically this is going to be all the sales orders, but we only want to return those orders from if the salesperson that actually had those orders, okay, um, uh, has over $3 million in sales for the total years. So what we can do is do a subquery that says go select one from the salesperson where the sales year to date is over 3 million and the sales order header salesperson ID. That's actually what you'll see is the same table up here is equal to the salesperson business entity ID. So the whole idea is that if this person is over $3 million, I'm certain I love this particular query because it actually sales year to date is a total, and that's not something you would normally do is store totals, but nonetheless, for sake of an example, hopefully this makes sense. All right. So if we look at this, this is what it's going to do. If we find the salespeople that are over $3 million, it will, and they exist in here, it will only return those rows based upon the outer query where those actually come back, where it's actually true, renders true. Does that make sense? All right. The where clause returns all records where the exist clause is true. That's the only thing that it returns, right? And so then it basically, it exists in here, and then it will return it here. All right. The one thing you need to notice about the exist clause, it uses a correlated subquery. You might be saying, oh, what the heck is that? Another new term. Well, correlated means that it's going to use something from the outer query in the inner query. And in this case here, it's using the .salesperson ID from the exact same table that we have from the outer query. So the exist clause must be correlated with that. All right. Of course, you can also use not exist. Let's see. I'm sorry. Only salespeople with the sales year to date greater than 3 million are included in the results. The exist clause returns true if one or more rows. I'm repeating myself there from the subquery. Not exist is something too. Not exist returns true if 0 rows are returned. So if I want to turn this around, And so if we want to find all sales orders that were written by salespeople that didn't have 3 million in year-to-date sales, we could write it like this. So sort of like that outer join thing, right? Go find the people that didn't meet that condition, or go find people that you know don't have any sales at all, right? And so we can actually go do that. In this case, I'm not quite sure that would actually work, because how would you have sales orders if you didn't have any sales at all? But in this case, go find the people who had less than 3 million. All right, and in that case, we can just write it as non-exist. Does that make sense? Take a look at these, okay? They're kind of a neat way of utilizing a subquery, and kind of a neat way of actually doing something along the lines of an outer join, yet a little bit more powerful, don't you think? You can actually do a lot more conditions and only bring back certain things based upon how this condition, how these things are actually worked, okay? The other type of way of doing this is using the in and not in clauses, okay? The in operator is considered a membership type. The membership type allows you to conduct multiple match tests compactly in one statement. So though in doesn't have to be correlated to a subquery, it sort of works nice, but we can actually write it in like this, where contact title in either CEO, owner, or president. Of course, you can rewrite that as saying contact title equals CEO, or contact title equals owner, or if contact owner equals president. So the in kind of, eliminates having to write those three statements, makes it a little cleaner, a little neater. All right. When using in with subqueries, the list of values is replaced with the subquery. The advantage of using a subquery in this case is that it helps make your queries more data driven. In other words, more dynamic, and you don't have to hard code things in there. We hate hard coding. Programmers, IT people hate hard coding anything. Everything we want to do should be dynamic. So in this case here, what we're saying is, for instance, if you're doing a query to find sales orders by top salespeople, in this case here, give me all the sales orders where the salesperson is in, okay, where the salesperson, okay, is in the results of this query here, the inner query here, where it's going to be the salesperson is the bonus is greater than $5,000. Make sense? So then that will return, in this case, the business entity ID, and we're going to try to find the salesperson ID within the result sets of that. Does that make sense? Sort of like that in we saw with CEO president. It's going to return every business ID, then it's going to compare the salesperson to the business entity ID to see if they're equal. If it finds it, it will then basically render true and bring that back, okay? As in returns true if the tested value is found in the comparison list. Not in returns true if the tested value is not found, just like not exists. Okay? There it is right there. So if I wanted to do something like an outer join and only return one row, okay, not in might be a really good way of doing that. All right? Subqueries and a where clause. So as stated, the concept and use of subqueries can become very advanced, okay? For the purpose of this course, we want to introduce you to them. And in doing so, we want you to understand and apply the in and not in clause to mimic an outer join. So let's demonstrate that. And so you can actually play around with them also, okay? We're gonna get out of here and look for there. So prior to this, I'm going to go back to my inner joins. We were showing you, people who, um, those who had sales and those who did not have sales based upon this. But whenever your boss comes to you and says, I don't care about those who have sales. All I want to know is the list of people who do not have sales. That's all I want to know. The customers have not created any sales for us whatsoever. Now, you can take this list and massage it and do things with it, and maybe get the result set and then in code kind of just go pull off the top two where the zeros are at. Or you can write a subquery that will sort of do it for you. All right. I shouldn't say sort of, because it'll actually do it for you. And in this case here, take a look. So only show any stores that do not have sales. So in this case here, I'm going to select from T stores, from stores as, and I'm going to join it to sales. where it's equal to basically on the source ID and the in both tables. Okay. So what this select right here will bring back, obviously, let's go ahead and look at this. Just go ahead and run this particular piece here. It's going to bring back all these stores that were in here. So what we're trying to find now is the stores that do not have any sales. So we have that big list there. Then what we're going to do here is go get all the stores from our table. And it's going to compare every store and find the stores that are not in this list that you just saw based upon the execution of this. Let me do that a little bit more slowly. So as you see, all these stores were returned. Each row represents a sale that took place based upon my data. Now, if we actually run this, we're going to compare the two. And actually what you'll see is that there were no sales at JCPenney's and no sales at Sears. So this gives you an opportunity to do something very similar to an outer join, yet it's not going to return anything that was matched. It's just going to return those that didn't have anything, any kind of sales at all. Does that make sense? Okay, so only show, and I'm going to introduce one more thing to you here. So only show any stores that do not have sales after any sales between two dates. So only show any stores that do not have any sales between two dates. I don't know if that's good English or not, but we'll just assume it is at this point in time. And so to do that, we're going to go ahead and go find all the sales between two dates. So I want to introduce you to this little clause called between. You could have written this different ways. You could have said anything that's greater than or equal to 9/1/2007 and the date less than or equal to 9/30/2007. Between's a nice way of actually doing this. What between does will bring back any rows that has dates between these two dates, including the dates. Okay, so between does exactly of greater than or equal to and less than or equal to a compound condition. So once again, you can write it the old way. You don't have to write it with between, but I want to make sure you see how between works and you may want to play with it. It works really great with dates. I really like it. And once again, it'll bring back any date between them and all, including the ends. So 9/1 and 9/30 would come back also. So in this case here, we'll go ahead and run this. All right. Once again, we'll just run this one, kind of show you what comes back in the list. Okay, so Macy's dealers a lot less transactions in this one, and so in this case, then when we run this against our store table, we can actually say that JCPenney's and Sears, once again, picking on poor JCPenney's and Sears, I apologize if people work for them who are out there, did not have any sales in this particular time frame between those two dates. All right. So there you go. There's kind of wrapping up subqueries. That's kind of what we want you to practice right now to kind of get an idea how a subquery works. Once again, we welcome you to go practice other things. And the only way you really learn SQL and select statements and is playing around, finding opportunities, taking this type of data that we have given you in this databases and other databases that we have constructed throughout this course, and going out and playing to get the information out. I welcome you to do that. You don't have to just be constrained to our assignments. Go play some more. Try some different scenarios. Have somebody ask you some scenarios to get information out and see if you can do it. All right? You've been given quite a bit of ammunition when it comes to explicit, aggregates, queries, inner joins, outer joins, and so on. And you should be able to get about 99% of what you want based upon your knowledge now. All right? With that, I wish you good luck and happy querying.